Hopefully, yes. All right, we will go ahead and jump right in. So just as a little bit of a review, Tennessee Achieves is a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we are partnered with the Tennessee Promise Scholarship in 90 of the 95 counties throughout the state of Tennessee. If you're looking at the map, we are in all of the green counties, and then the AIRS Foundation works with Tennessee Promise students in the gray counties. The AIRS Foundation will be expanding to other counties with the class of 2022. So they will be taking on a couple of the counties that we are currently working with, while we will continue to work with the college cohort of students in those counties. Tennessee Achieves actually started as Knox Achieves in 2008. The first class of Knox Achieves was about 500 students. Now we have worked with over 400,000 students and 71,000 volunteers since inception, with typically about 60,000 students applying for Tennessee Promise each year. Annually, we work with, like I said, those 60,000 new applicants, as well as about 601 high schools, including private, homeschool, public schools, and then we have students that are attending about 67 eligible post-secondary institutions statewide. All right, a little bit more about Tennessee Promise and Tennessee Achieves. So Tennessee Promise is obviously the last dollar scholarship, the funding piece. So that is typically what students, community members, parents recognize is that Tennessee Promise. And that last dollar scholarship is available to all Tennessee high school seniors, allowing them to attend a community college or technical college, tuition and mandatory fee free. Now we'll get a little bit into the Tennessee Achieves program specifically. So in order for students to receive that last dollar funding at one of those eligible institutions, they must meet the eligibility requirements through us at Tennessee Achieves. So 3 main pillars of the program since its inception, when it was even Knox Achieves back in 2008, have been 1, the last dollar scholarship component, which we just discussed, which is Tennessee Promise. The second being volunteer mentors. So each year we look to recruit 9,000 volunteers statewide to work with our 60,000 applicants annually. So that mentor is paired with a student in their community. The mentor does get to pick which high school and county they would like to work with students in. And that mentor acts as a resource and provides guidance to students as they are going through the college process. The third pillar that has remained true since inception has been community service hours. So as a requirement to receive Tennessee Promise funding, students must complete and submit 8 hours of community service every semester they are receiving that funding. We really wanted to create a culture of giving back. Since students are given this opportunity to earn this scholarship, we want to make sure they're putting some of that effort and energies back into the community. A couple other components that we offer within the Tennessee Achieves program to Tennessee Promise students, one of them being some of our summer programs. So the Summer Bridge program, we have this past year, we did it in person on campus at the 13 community colleges, as well as we had an online program that we were able to pilot this year due to COVID-19. So with this Summer Bridge program, about 70% of Tennessee Promise students or Tennessee Achieve students typically need remediation, which means they are not testing at a college level. So this program provides students the opportunity to get instruction in reading, writing, and math, and then have a chance to test into college level courses at the end of the program. We typically see a really high success rate with this program, with students either improving their test scores or testing into college level courses. This past year, we had 98% of students leaving college feeling like they were much more prepared than they were before they began this 3-week program. You'll also see Institute is mentioned. This is a more rigorous program. So it is a 6-week program. We currently are only hosting it at Southwest, but we are hoping to expand in the future. it gives students the ability to take those 3 remediation courses along with 3 college courses. So at the end of those 6 weeks, students can walk away with 9 college credits starting their freshman year. This past year, we had 100% of students that participate earn those 9 college credit hours. So that was super exciting for those students and a great success this past year. The other thing mentioned here in the middle of the screen is our complete program. So Tennessee Achieves identifies at-risk students based on income. When they are entering college, we then assign them to what we call a complete coach that checks in with them monthly and is really proactive, reaching out to that student to ensure they're progressing, they're retaining, and they're able to help students through any obstacles that may arise, be there for them as a resource. You'll see on the right-hand side here of the page in the green box, it also talks about the power of targeted communication. So we definitely believe in communication at Tennessee Achieves. We send a lot of millions of emails and literally millions of texts each year to students and their support systems to ensure they are aware of requirements, make sure they know what is coming next for them, and remind them of what they have to do in order to enroll in college, retain, and graduate. All right, a little bit into the data now. We can talk about Tennessee Achieves reach. So as I've mentioned some of this before, I'll quickly highlight it again. Tennessee Achieves works in 90 of the 95 counties. We are the partnering organization to the Tennessee Promise Scholarship. 74 of them rural counties, 35 of them are what the state has deemed at risk or a distressed county. As I mentioned earlier, we work with about 601 high schools, including public, private, and home schools. As far as post-secondary partners, we work with 67 colleges statewide, and then you'll see the breakdown of where a lot of these Tennessee Achieves students attend. So the overwhelming majority, 79%, are enrolled at a community college, with the remaining 21% kind of split almost evenly, 11% at a TCAT, Tennessee College of Applied Technology, 10% of students going to a 4-year eligible institution. Look a little bit more at this data, break it down a bit more. So we work with 89% of Tennessee high school seniors. So as we mentioned earlier, we are in 90 of the 95 counties currently. So that is most of the state. And as you may know, a lot of high schools have 100% of their students sign up for Tennessee Promise, regardless of where they are planning to attend. Tennessee Promise can be a great backup plan, even if it's plan C on the list. If a student does not apply in their senior year of high school by the application deadline, which is typically November 1st, with the application opening August 1st each year, they aren't able to apply at a later date. So that is why a lot of high schools, and we encourage students to apply regardless of their plans. So 89% of Tennessee high school seniors are doing that and are Tennessee Achieves students. 78% of all first-time freshmen at a Tennessee community college are a Tennessee Achieves student. 86% of Tennessee community college graduates are Tennessee Achieves students. If we're looking at funding, 56% of students are eligible for federal financial aid. So a requirement in the program is to complete the free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA. About 56% of students are eligible for funding such as the Pell Grant, which is for students with a lower income. 40% of students are first-generation college students, so the first in their family to go to college. 51% are majoring in health science or STEM-related fields. And then if we're looking at cost, Tennessee Promise Scholarship annual cost is about $32 million a year, and then about $2.5 million for Tennessee Achieves. Now we'll get into more county-specific data since we've talked a little bit about Tennessee Promise and Tennessee Achieves. So if we're looking at the FAFSA file rate, as I mentioned, that is required for students to maintain Tennessee Promise eligibility. In Tennessee in general, their FAFSA file rate is 86%. Warren County, right on par with the state average at 86%. So that's really awesome to see. I will say that Tennessee is one of the top states each year, especially recently with FAFSA file rate. There are a lot of other states where 50% would be really great as well. So the fact that Warren County and statewide students are filing their FAFSA at 86% is something to be super proud of in your community. With community service, like I said, this is also a requirement. So statewide, students have completed over 3 million hours of community service, with just over 23,000 of them being completed by students in Warren County. Then we'll look at student progress here. So each year, as I've mentioned probably a couple times now, we have over 60,000 students apply for Tennessee Promise, with about 451 of those applicants being from Warren County. If we go down to the second line there, it looks at students that are actually enrolling with Tennessee Promise. So that means they have met all the requirements up until enrollment, and then they are going to a Tennessee Promise eligible institution. So statewide, we have just about 17,500 students enrolling. Warren County 177, and a lot of times seeing that drop off from 451 to 177 can kind of concern some people, but I will say typically that's what we are seeing. We are seeing about a third of students that apply for Tennessee Promise continue through the program and actually enroll at a Tennessee Promise eligible institution. However, that doesn't mean that they are not going out of state potentially. Maybe they are going to one of the post-secondary institutions that is not Tennessee Promise eligible. Maybe they're going into the armed forces. So just because they are not enrolling with Tennessee Promise doesn't mean that they aren't doing something, enrolling somewhere. And then we'll look at the last two rows here. First year retention rate statewide is 67%. Warren County almost right on par there with the state average at 65%. So still something to be super proud of. It's much above, or it's right on par, like I said, with that state average. 3-year graduation rate is 35% statewide. Warren County, 10% higher than the statewide average at 45%, which is really awesome to see that students are not only retaining, but they're coming back each year and they're actually earning that degree or credential. So a lot to be proud of here when it comes to student progress in Warren County and what everyone is doing to help students through this process. Then we'll look at Tennessee Achieves outcomes here. So there's a lot of data on this page. If we're looking here on the right-hand side, you will see that Tennessee Achieves students are retaining. Their first year retention rate is 14% higher than non-Tennessee Achieves peers. When we're looking at the 6-year graduation rate, Tennessee Achieves students are graduating within those 6 years at 16% higher than their non-Tennessee Achieves peers. So what that's showing us is, while maybe you know there's still work to be done, we always want to reach for more. Having the requirements and having the structure for students to meet, and this is actually making a difference for students. I know a lot of students, don't want to maybe do community service, or I know the FAFSA can be super challenging for students, but making sure students meet those requirements and preparing them for college enrollment is making a difference in their retention and their graduation rates. When we're looking at the right side here, we talked a little bit about summer programs earlier. I had mentioned Summer Bridge and Institute. Students that are participating in those programs, their retention rate is 34% higher than Tennessee Achieves peers. And then we will look at Complete. We talked about having a coach, that proactive communication between student and coach when they are in college 23% higher for first year retention. And then Knox Promise at the bottom, we haven't touched on. Knox Promise is similar to the complete program. All students in Knox County that are going to a Tennessee Promise eligible institution will have a coach similar to complete. As I mentioned, those students first year retention rate is 42% higher. The next slide, we're going to look at statewide as well as Warren County. So this is a graph of the college going rate in Tennessee. So you'll see in 2014, that is when Tennessee Promise was implemented for the first class of students, which was class of 2015. So you'll see there was a huge jump in the college going rate between 2014 and 2015. It steadily got a little higher, with 2017 being almost 64%. It's dropping down a little bit there, but you'll see the most alarming part is of recent, obviously, from 2019 being about 62%, 2020 about 57%. And we know that is likely due to COVID-19 and all of the struggles that I know communities have faced with students and colleges and high schools having to kind of pivot to a virtual method. And that can be challenging, I know, for all involved in trying to convince students or even remind them the importance of education when there is a lot of other things going on within the community and the country and the world. So you'll see Warren County college going rate specifically in 2019 was about 60.5%. And then 2020, it dropped a little bit to 56%. So I know this is also kind of carried into 2021 where we are now. Hopefully we're able to make some progress and increase that college going rate here and remind students why it is important to earn their post-secondary degree or credential. So thinking about some things that hopefully can help increase that college going rate again for students. One of the things that we think could be super beneficial to students and what we often call the heart of our program is having a Tennessee Achieves mentor. So I mentioned earlier that that's one of the 3 pillars that we've always had part of the program is volunteers. We recruit 9,000 of them statewide each year. A mentor is about a year commitment. You would begin working with students in their spring semester of high school and going into their first semester of college. There are 3 roles we ask a mentor to play, one of them being a task manager. So somebody that is ensuring that students know the deadlines, you're reminding them of those critical deadlines that they have to meet in order to maintain Tennessee Promise eligible and enroll in college in the fall. We also send reminders, so it's not just on the mentor, but another layer of support built in there. A second role is to be a resource. So we in no way think that the mentor has to be an expert in this field. There are still questions even at Tennessee Achieves that we have, but we're here to support mentors and students through this process. And I think it helps students to know that even if my mentor doesn't have all the answers, I can go to them and we can figure this out together. The third thing, and I would argue in some cases the most important role of a mentor, is to be an encourager. While we know a lot of students do have support at home, some students don't have someone in their family that's encouraging them through this process. So having someone there that's letting them know, hey, I'm here for you, I'm a resource, you can do this and we will get through it. So those are the main 3 roles. A lot of your role as a mentor is communication, calling, texting, emailing the students, checking in with them, making sure they're on track for Tennessee Promise Scholarship and college enrollment. This year we'll have multiple options for mentors. There will be in-person options. There's also an option to virtually mentor to where you wouldn't have to meet in person at all if you weren't feeling comfortable. If you or anyone you know is interested in becoming a mentor, we are currently recruiting mentors for the class of 2022. You can apply at tennesseeachieves.org and the deadline is December 3rd. This year, specifically in Warren County, we need 68 mentors to pair with the 60,000 students statewide and about, I think it was 241 students that typically apply for Tennessee Promise in Warren County. Well, I think it might have been a little more than that, but we'll need 68 mentors in Warren County this year. If you're a new mentor, you complete the new mentor application on our website, and then you will do a 1-hour training. Returning mentors will do a renewal application, or just let Tennessee Achieves know that they are wanting to return, and we can make sure to mark them that way in our system. And then a 30-minute refresher. Like I said, we're looking to recruit those 68 mentors in Warren County by December 3rd. A couple other next steps to ensure Tennessee students have access to post-secondary opportunities. One is, like we already discussed, becoming a mentor. The second is connecting Tennessee Achieves with your community. So as I've mentioned a couple times now, we are looking to make sure students know they have this opportunity, and also wanting to recruit those volunteers statewide. So we'd love to come anywhere and share our story and Tennessee Achieves with you. You can just email mentors at Tennessee Achieves to arrange a date or time. And finally, telling people about Tennessee Promise. So the 2022 application for students is live. Students are required to complete that application as a high school senior. The application opened on August 1st, and it will close on November 1st. And that is the only window that high school seniors can complete that application and be eligible for Tennessee Promise. So if you know a high school senior, sharing that news and information with them, letting them know that they can attend a community college or a TCAT, Tennessee College of Applied Technology, for free. And that is the end of the presentation. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Jessica Macey. My phone number is listed here, as well as my email, but I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to take them. And if not, I appreciate you all being here today. All right, well, if nobody has any questions, I will go ahead and hop off. Like I said, I really appreciate you guys being here today. Great work in Warren County with all of the data that I shared with you all today. If you'd like the presentation, I'm happy to send it to you. Just send me an email, or you can reach out to Tennessee Achieves or mentors at tnAchieves.org. But I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.